looks like we're getting to be about 1 o'clock. Andrea, are there some instructions? Most of you guys know Andrea. Andrea is our social media coordinator. Andrea, there's some instructions that you want to walk folks through about using Zoom and some things they should have in mind.
Yeah, so hi guys, I'm Andrea, and this is the first time that we've used Zoom in this capacity, so really excited for everyone that is watching this or calling in and everything. So we have everyone muted. If for some reason you become unmuted, please mute yourself. It's just going to really help with the sound. We got a lot of people coming on this call. But we definitely want to answer your questions and everything. So if you have questions at any time during the presentation and everything, please put it in the chat box. And if you look towards the bottom of your screen, you might need to take your cursor, your mouse, and hover over it. But you will see a little chat icon. And if you click on that, the box will pop up and you have the ability to actually even chat with anyone individually. But if you want us to see the question, make sure that you either have my name, Andrea Davis Satina, and I will privately see it, or you can click everyone and then everyone will see your question. The plan is at this point that we will Dallas will start the presentation at like 1:05 Mountain Time, and that will go on for 30 minutes or so. And after that, we will answer questions and everything. So I'll be reading your questions off of the chat box, so feel free to put it in there. And if anything else comes up during that time that you're having issues with, just message me on the chat box. Again, I'm Andrea Davis Satina, and I think that is the housekeeping. Dallas, was there anything else?
I think you got it. Is the screen coming through okay, and my sound okay?
Yeah, people can just give like a thumbs up or anything if they can hear. If you cannot hear, then you probably can't hear us asking this. But always let us know in the chat.
Okay, I saw a few thumbs up, so I think we're good to go. Welcome, everybody. Glad you made time to be on with us today. We're going to walk through some business strategy development around the COVID issue. Certainly some things that I haven't faced before in my time being in this business, and I imagine for a lot of you it's the same thing. So just thought we'd have an opportunity to jump on, share some ideas, think through some ways of constructively thinking through how you might structure your business during this time, because it is certainly a time of a lot of change. Clicking through the faces that are on here, we've got some great minds that are joining us on here. So some of you, I'm going to be calling on towards the end here to share some things with the group. So just be aware you might get called on. So let's run through. I'm Dallas Mount. I think I know most of the names on there, but I imagine there's a few of you I haven't met yet. I've run the Ranching RMC, that is the company that runs Ranching for Profit and the Executive Link program. We're based here in Wheatland, Wyoming, and so anyway, we'll do a quick short introduction and get going. There we go. All right. So let's get rolling. There's a picture from this Colorado Springs Ranching for Profit School that we would have had recently in January in the Springs. And the white vest there is John Locke. John's one of our longtime Executive Link members and is working with us now, starting to teach Ranching for Profit School. So it's fun to have him on board. It's been said, if you never do the hard thing, that life will be hard. But if you'll do the hard thing, life can be easier. I would change that too. So if, this COVID stuff, if you just put your head in the sand and ignore it and don't take any action, that's doing the easy thing, and doing the easy thing can make life hard. But if you're willing to do what sometimes can be hard things, the planning, the conversations, and the thought that goes into how is your business going to respond, it can make life easier. So who are we? What do we do? So RMC is our company, Ranch Management Consultants. So we really do two things. We teach the Ranching for Profit School, and we run the Executive Link program. Most of you probably know a bit about us, so I won't spend much time on this, but Ranching for Profit School is a 7-day business management school for ranchers. And it's based on the idea that knowing how to raise livestock is not the same thing as knowing how to run a business that raises livestock. So we're the business management school for those in the agriculture industry. The Executive Link, that's a program for folks that graduate from the Ranching for Profit School. I see many faces on the call that are current members of the Executive Link program. Glad to have you guys on here. It's a peer advisory network where you get together and share business strategies, hold each other accountable for that. So those are the two main things of what we do. So enough about us, and let's dive in. So I shared this in the last profit tips, but I think it's important to start here. This is the accountability ladder, and Alan Crockett, one of our instructors, shared this with us at the most recent Executive Link meetings we had. I did some looking to see who was the original, who came up with this originally, and it seems like it's just been around in management curriculum and documents for a long time, and I can't find who the originator of it was. But the ladder, and Alan talked about starting at the bottom of the ladder, and a lot of folks spend their life at the bottom of the ladder. And way down at the bottom is death, and right beside death are emotions like anger and hatred and blame and discouragement and a scarcity mindset and hidden agendas. So you can all think of people that you've worked with that spend a lot of their time operating at the bottom of the ladder. Now, as we pull ourselves up the ladder, we start to find things like responsibility and the abundance mindset. There's transparency in how we do things. And all the way up, we find love and joy and accountability for what we do, happiness. So at the bottom of that ladder is very much a victim mindset. And when we're operating at the top of the ladder, we're taking ownership of how we run our business. So as I started to think about how we're going to structure our businesses to respond to COVID-19 and the current issues going on, I think that where do you want to be operating? And a lot of the stuff we see on social media and other things are from the perspective of operating at the bottom of the ladder. So what can we do to pull ourselves up the ladder and start taking accountability for how we structure our businesses, and accountability for the enterprises that we're choosing to be a part of, and the things that we're making choices of doing in our businesses. So that's where we're going to spend the time talking today, is from a mindset up the ladder. And we can all catch ourselves falling back down the ladder, but the struggle is to catch yourself doing that and pull yourself up the ladder so that you're making those decisions from the top, from accountability and ownership. So we want to spend most of the time today on the call walking you through a tool called the Implications Wheel. So the Implications Wheel was developed by Joel Barker's group, and you can find information out about it on implicationswheel.com. And we're going to show you a little bit of a modified version of the Implications Wheel, but it's really a great tool to think through, if this happens, how might it affect my business, and what might we do in our business for those things. So this COVID-19 is we think the Implications Wheel is a really good choice to think through your business about how your business is going to respond to the COVID-19. So when I say we did a little bit of a modified version of this, we're putting COVID-19 in the middle. And I found this useful when we did this for RMC to develop at least 3 different alternatives that could be going on related to the COVID-19. And for us, it made sense to think through this in terms of how long will the impact to the quarantine or the social distancing, if you would, and all the fallout coming from that, as well as the fallout from the illness itself. How long will those be going on? So for us, and you don't have to do these exactly as we've done. I mean, you can pick your own dates, but we decided, well, let's say, what if it goes through the 1st of May? And then another one, we said, well, what if it goes through the 1st of June? And then what if there is a resurgence that happens in the fall? So some have talked about this being a cool weather event, and when the heat of the summer comes on, it'll go away, and then as we get closer into fall, we might have a resurgence of this. So this is how we thought through it for our business, and you might want to pick your own dates in there, but think through maybe what are some different possible outcomes that could happen with COVID-19. Okay. So once we've identified those, then we want to take that and think through these in terms of first order, second order, and third order implications. So let's show you what that might look like. So if it goes through the 1st of May, what are things that might occur in a ranching business? Well, market volatility. So as you do this with your team, I suggest you get some pieces of flip chart paper, and probably going to want at least 3 or maybe 4 of these, and tape them up on a big wall, give yourself some room to work. You can use a whiteboard if you want, but the challenge with the whiteboard is you're probably going to need that whiteboard again, and you're going to have to erase it, and there goes all your good thoughts. So flip chart paper seems to work well. So get these 3 or 4 pieces of flip chart paper and build yourself a nice big wall to work from. And then get people around with you and start thinking through, okay, so this has happened. This COVID-19 and all the fallout with it is sticking around through the 1st of May. So that has happened. So now what could happen related to our business? Well, somebody say, well, there's going to be some market volatility with that. Great. Okay, let's throw that up. So as people are suggesting things, just go ahead and put them up. Don't challenge them. Don't say, well, that's pretty unlikely to happen, or don't say, well, do you really think that's really, just say this has happened. Now what could happen, and start building these bubbles. So another one would say, well, the kids are going to be home. Okay, well, that's pretty much going to happen. Supply chain disruptions. Okay, so that's something that certainly could come through that. Goes through the 1st of May. Well, people are going to be less mobile. All right, that's probably going to happen. So just start building all these different things that could happen if this goes through the 1st of May. Okay, now once you've done that and you've got those up, then I want you, oops, looks like I'm missing some of those. Well, not sure why that's disappeared here. That circle used to say market volatility, right? So if market volatility happens, so now we're going to think through the second order implications, okay? So market volatility has happened, okay? So now what does that mean for our business? Okay, so one of these could be, well, there's going to be opportunities, right? So whenever the market's volatile, there's opportunities on the high end and the low end, right? So that's one of the things that will happen if there's market volatility. Well, maybe we need to take some price protection. Sure, that's a good one to come off of that. All right, what about grass demand? So if the market's volatile, maybe people are feeling like their animals are worthless, so animals that they would have sold, they're going to hold on to. So when they hold on to those animals, well, maybe there's more demand for grass. Okay. So we're just thinking through those things. Now, what about the kids being home? What could that result in? Okay, well, we're going to be running a ranch homeschool. Okay, maybe this is something some of you do every day, but for some of us, this is new. Okay, so let's throw that up there. So we've got a ranch homeschool program that we've got to think about. Okay, well, there's that poultry enterprise. You know, one of the kids has been talking about developing a poultry enterprise, and well, now that they're home in an unexpected additional month or so, well, maybe it's time to get started on that poultry enterprise. So let's throw that on there. Okay. So supply chain disruption. So that has happened. Okay, so what kind of things might that cause for our business? Well, calving supplies. Okay, those might be difficult to come by or take longer to get. What about trucks for summer grass? So as you're doing this, I suggest you have another set of flip charts sitting over to the side or something to capture on, because as you can imagine, as you have 5 or 6 people sitting around talking about how this is going to affect your business, these ideas are going to start to come out, and you're going to think, well, you know what, I probably should make some phone calls about that, or that's an action item. So what I suggest you do is have another flip chart that's sitting off to the side with a blank sheet on it, and have action items written across the top. So when this idea of trucks for summer grass comes along, somebody thinks, you know what, we're a bit early, but let's start making some phone calls and being some of the first to schedule trucks for our summer grass needs this year. If you don't capture them now, you might not get them caught as you have these discussions. Okay, so it looks like I've got another bubble missing down here. People were less mobile, I think is what that said down here. Okay, so if people are less mobile, well, what is that going to do to our branding season? Maybe we need to start rethinking about how we've been running our brandings. All right, well, what about that summer intern that was going to come work on the ranch this year? Maybe their plans have changed. Maybe we can call them, follow up. So you see how starting to make these second and third order implications, you're now thinking through, okay, if this has happened, it's now the 1st of May and this thing's still sticking around, what kind of fallout is that going to cause for our business? And then that's now occurred. What kind of fallout is that going to cause for our business? Okay. So you can see now you could take this and go another level deeper with it as well. You could take these second, third order implications and go off of them. Okay. So that's the way you develop the wheel. Developing the wheel itself should be a high energy exercise, get people around, get some different markers with different colors, and just start developing this thing. Okay, don't shoot ideas down. As you come along, each of these things that could happen, like the kids being home. Okay, well, let's challenge ourselves to think of, well, what's at least one good thing that could happen, and then what's one bad thing that could happen. We're challenging ourselves to think deeper through it. Remember, don't dismiss ideas. If somebody suggests it, write it down. Okay? We're going to come back later and reevaluate these ideas. Okay? So that's the first thing you want to do, is get those things on the wall. Now, here's where we really need to give some thought through these. So we're going to take each of these implications that we've developed and think them through and give them a score rated to the significance to our business and the probability that they will occur. Okay, so what's the significance to our business and what's the probability that we think they might occur? Now, here's a scoring system that we use in Executive Link. If you'd like to use it, you're welcome to use it. If it creates complication for you and you want to go to something different, we'll do that. But we think there's some value in this. So on the significance side, we're going to score it as a 1, 3, 5, or a 50. So if something's a 1, it's insignificant to our business, okay? It's just a minor inconvenience. If it's a 3, it's something that we'll look back in a year and say, oh yeah, well that happened. Yeah, that was a pretty big deal at the time. If it's a 5, and 5 years from now, we're going to look back and remember when that happened. Okay, so that's a 5 is a big deal for your business. Okay? And then a 50 is a make or break for your business. This could be a breakthrough to the positive, or it could be a break up. Okay, if this happened, this could bring the business down. So as you think through those, we're going to score the significance to your business on a scale of 1, 3, 5, or 50. Okay, now the next thing is probability. In probability, we're going to use odd numbers, 1 through 9. 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. So if it's a 1, it's very unlikely. There's almost no chance that could occur. Okay, if it's a 3, that's pretty unlikely. If it's a 5, then that's about a 50-50 shot. And a 7, well, that's more than likely. And if it's a 9, it's as close to a sure thing as it could be. Okay. So significance and probability. So let's walk through this implications wheel that we just laid out. Hey, I got all my bubbles this time. So let's walk through this implications wheel and let's think about how some of these things might happen. Now, the first thing that we're going to do is each of these possibilities that we developed related to COVID-19, we're going to score them based on their significance to our business and the probability that we think that's going to occur. Now, we don't know, right? We're just giving our best guess. Okay? So the first one, through the 1st of May. Okay? Well, as we started developing that and thinking it through, I think that's a 3. That's not, our business could weather that pretty well. Yeah, sure, it'd be something that we're sure going to look back in a year and remember when this happened. But it's not something that, if this goes to the 1st of May, it's probably not going to make or break our business. And what's the probability of that happening? Well, I think it's probably either a 7 or a 9. Okay, so you could have some discussions among your team to say, well, do we think this is a 7? Is this pretty much going to happen, or is this a 9? Is this a done deal? Okay. So there you go. Done the significance and probability on that one. Now let's think through the 1st of June. Okay? So if this thing continues on through the 1st of June, how big an impact to our business might that be? Well, we'd have to use the information that we developed. I mean, I'm just showing you one part of this chart that's been developed, right? If you guys were doing this for years, you would have thought through and had those bubbles developed off to the right there for everything that could have happened for the 1st of June. So you would have given it a lot more thought. So we decided it's a 5. Okay? This thing going through the 1st of June, that's going to be a pretty big deal for our business. Okay? We've got some important things that need to happen between now and June. And if the COVID thing hangs around, well, that could be a pretty big deal for our business. Now, what's the probability of it happening? Oh boy, we're going to have some conversations about that as a team and talk through it. But we eventually landed on a 5. Okay, we said, well, there's probably about a 50-50 shot of this thing carrying on through June. All right, now the next one, the resurgence in October. So as we think through our ranching business and how this might impact, boy, that October, that fall time, that's the time of year when we're doing most of our marketing. We've got a lot of moving parts in there. And if this thing resurges, then that means it's really hung around quite a while, and now it's coming back. And how are people going to respond? There's probably going to be some conversations among your team about, well, if it does resurge, how are we going to have the tools to maybe fight it better? How are people going to respond? But you know what? As we discussed this, we decided that one for our business is a 50. Okay? If that occurs, that could mean a break up of our business. Okay? And then a 3 in terms of probability. So we think that's a pretty remote chance of happening. Now, we didn't call it a 1, but we called it a 3. Okay? So again, I'm not giving you these that they're going to be your answers. I'm giving you these to show how you think through them. Stan Parsons was the founder of the Ranching for Profit School, and Stan said, the process is more important than the result. Okay? So really the important thing about doing this is the process of walking through it and having these conversations with your team. We did this for RMC here at this, and we got the staff involved, and you know what, having the conversations that we had thinking through how it's going to impact the business, that really was more important than having our implications wheel on the wall over there. It was those conversations that went on behind it. So for your businesses, that's going to be the case as well. The process is more important than the result. So now that we've thought through those first order ones, let's do the significance and probability for these second ones. Okay, so it has happened. We're now through the 1st of May. So let's look at that market volatility. Okay, so if the market's volatile, how big a deal for our business is it? And then what's the probability of that happening? Well, we decided for our business that market volatility this time of year is a 3. I mean, we've got some coal animals to market, and we're wondering how that's going to affect those. But the probability of that happening, well, that's a 9. That's pretty much a done deal, right? We're seeing some significant market volatility now. Okay? So the kids being home, oh, well, then we're going to go ahead and think through the second order implications of those. So grass demand. So if we have a higher level of grass demand, we decided that was a 5. Maybe we could take some opportunities there, and the chance of that happening was 50-50. So somebody might say, well, you know what, if prices go down, people might have to sell because they don't have the cash flow, right? So what's the probability of that? Maybe it's not all that high. Price protection. So for our business, we decided that would be a 3 for us, and there's a chance that we should look into that a bit more. And then opportunities to buy animals. Okay, so as that conversation went in, we thought, well, you know what, this could be a pretty significant opportunity. We've been looking to expand in one class or another, and boy, that could be a big deal for our business. And the probability of there being opportunities in this market, that's a 7. Okay, so you see how those conversations can really help dive in to what could be some fallout of this. All right, so the kids are home. You know, for our business, that's probably a 1. Maybe for some of you, that number's getting higher. I don't know. And then the probability of that happening, that's a 9. That's pretty much a done deal, right? And you can think through how those other things could impact your business. So the supply chain disruptions. So through their conversations, these guys decided that the supply chain disruptions was a 3, and the chance of that happening was a 5. Okay, so it's about a 50-50 shot. So how big a deal is that if we can't get calving supplies? Well, you know what, it's probably only a 3. We can figure out ways around it. And the probability of that happening, maybe that's pretty low as well. So maybe that's not a real high priority to take some action on. But trucks for the summer, if we can't get trucks to take our cattle to summer grass, that could be a big deal for the business. And even though it's a fairly low probability, you know what, somebody probably needs to be taking action on that to position our business for that. Let's walk through these last ones and complete it. So if people are less mobile, how big a deal to our business? Well, we decided that's a 3. You know, it's something we'll be able to manage through, but it's certainly going to cause some hiccups along the way. And then what's the chances of that happening? Well, that's a 9. That's pretty much a done deal, right? Okay, so what about branding help? Okay, well, these guys, through their conversations, they decided, well, there's some ways to manage through that. And then what about this summer intern? How big a deal is that? Decided that's a 3, and you know what? He actually sent an email yesterday that said he or she's not coming for the summer anyway. So that's pretty much a 9. Okay? So when you start doing the scoring, that's really where the conversation slows down, and dives in deeper in this implications wheel. And you start thinking through, how might this affect our business? What's the likelihood of this happening? And then you could have some follow-up conversations of what are we going to do to take action to start preventing these things, or positioning ourselves to take off. So that is an implications wheel. So let's walk through some tips on this. Okay, number one, involve people. This isn't something you want to do on your own. Okay, so if you're sitting in your office trying to develop this yourself, you're not going to come up with near as many ideas. And remember, the conversation, the process is more important than the result. You want to complete all the first order implications before going on to the second. So put them out, get them down, and then go on and say, okay, so if that happened, then what's going to happen on these others? Remember to list at least one negative implication and one positive possibility in each cluster of implications. So it's easy on some of these things to just be roses and sunshine, right? Well, this is occurring, so that, or the opposite can happen. We can think of all the negative things. Well, down markets are always bad, right? No way. There's always opportunities in down markets. So what are the possibilities there? So just make sure you're challenging yourselves to think through at least one negative and one positive. So be as descriptive as possible. Try to use an adjective in each phrase. I probably didn't demonstrate that very well with the ones I used. Avoid words like effects or changes or impacts because they lack specificity. Repetition between clusters is okay. So it's fine to have something show up over here and also down here. And contradictions within clusters are okay as well. It's like we talked about that demand for grass. And this could affect our demand for summer grass. Well, if everybody holds on to their animals because they don't want to sell them in what could be a depressed market, well, maybe demand for summer grass goes up. Well, if everybody sells their animals because they need cash flow, maybe demand for summer grass goes down. The weird and the obvious are okay. I remember Derek Schwannebeck facilitating an EL meeting, and he said, well, the first thing somebody should say is aliens. Let's get it on the wall. Okay? And I thought that was a great way to start it, because just don't be afraid to think outside the box and put something weird up there. And don't be afraid to put the obvious up there as well. Think from a variety of perspectives, and then go fast. Developing the implications wheel should be a high energy exercise with lots of things being put on the wall. Don't take the time to fall off into the weeds of discussion of specifics of each of those, and don't dismiss ideas. As people are throwing them up, put them on there. You can always come back later when you're scoring them and think them through. Okay, so we're going to share a document with you, and I think Andrea's going to upload that in the chat box right now if you want to download it. I know I went through this fairly quickly. Just wanted to give you an idea of what this implications tool is and some details on it. But you're going to be able to download this document that walks through everything I just covered and actually quite a bit more. So when you want to do this with your ranch team, you'll have some structure to do this.
And
Okay,
Dallas, just to chime in for people that are on the phone joining this conference call and not with the video, we'll have a resource page on our website in the coming week. And also, if you look at the most recent Profit Tips article, it kind of goes over some of this stuff as well. And that's up on the website right now under Profit Tips.
Cool. Thanks, Andrea. Okay. So just to give you a quick update on how some of you are probably enrolled in some of these schools that are coming up, and just want to let you know what our plan is. So the first one coming up is Oklahoma City, May 3rd through the 9th, and that one's currently full. We've got a full class there. Our plan currently is to hold that school, and we've sent an email to everybody that's enrolled in that says we're going to make a final decision by the 17th of April. Okay, so we're talking with the hotel weekly about that. Currently, the plan is to go, but if for some reason this continues on, we'll let everybody know no later than the 17th of April what the plan is for that school. The Georgia school, we're hoping that one will go as well. And again, we're going to set a deadline by which we're going to make a decision on that one. Those are the two schools that I think are likely to be impacted. As we went through this and looking at how things are unfolding, I'm hoping it'll play out by summer and into fall. But that's our plan for the coming year are those schools. So if you'd like to get on the list to attend one or repeat a school, there's going to be some in your area in the coming time. And Jen Colby, you'll be glad to note, it says Northeast down there. So you had an impact there, Jen. I saw you on earlier. Okay, Viktor Frankl. Some of you probably know who Viktor Frankl is. Was in the concentration camps, and was really put through some terrible things. And he made the statement when we're no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. So thinking about how this impacts your business. It's easy to get caught up into thinking at the bottom of the ladder and become a victim to the situation that we're currently in. It's much more empowering to say, how is my business going to respond to this? What am I going to do about it? If I'm taking complete ownership of my business and controls the decision making in my business, then what are you going to do about it? So think about opportunities that might come for your business and what you're going to do. I'd like to throw it out to a couple of people now. I guess I saw Shannon and Melinda, the Sims family. Maybe there's more of you on there. I saw Shannon's face. And we recently had a webinar for executive link members where we covered some things. And one of the things we briefly talked about was the implications wheel. And I know some of you guys in EL actually went back and did this. And, so Shannon, Melinda, as you guys did this as a family, I know you said it was pretty informal, but what were some of the outcomes of that, if you wouldn't mind sharing?
Yeah, we always enjoy to share, Dallas. The first thing that we kind of came to is we don't have to make any decisions right away. Being cow-calf, we own the factory. And so we decided, first of all, that we're going to use some of our cash reserve to get us through and not have to make any decisions. I was talking to a friend of mine the other day, and we tend to make our best decisions when you don't have a knife to your throat. And so we're going to take advantage of that and ride this thing out and see where we end up. Along with that, though, we're in the middle right now of working towards finding the opportunities in this. You know, every cloud has a silver lining. What we're looking at right now is talking to a lot of our direct marketing friends in Colorado, Kansas. They can't keep up with inventory. So I think this could be a time. We've used implants for years, and I never could figure out how to get a better return on that 30 pounds for a $2 implant. But this might be the time that we are able to justify that. You know, from that point on, once we get to this fall and we start having to make some decisions, then our timelines are going to change. We'll have to sit down and get a little more serious. But we found we didn't have any 50s. We have time, and we have the luxury of taking our time making these decisions.
Cool. All right. Thanks for sharing, Shannon. I'd like to throw it over to David McLean. Some of you know RCS. RCS is our sister company over in Australia. They got the Grazing for Profit School. They also run an executive link program. And David's a director with RCS. And David, what is you guys are over there dealing with what I'm guessing are some similar situations to what we're dealing with. Maybe the scale is a bit different. What are you finding some of the folks that you're working with are doing?
Morning, Dallas. Coming through okay?
Yes, you are.
Great. Look, I'll follow on from what Sim's family just talked about there. I don't think there's any need to go out and rush it and make any rapid changes. If we look at what's going on, we're seeing, as you've got there on your implications wheel, a lot of market volatility and a lot of unknowns. And we've got the very real probability of some lumpy cash flow. And by lumpy, I mean, it could be periods of time with no cash flow and periods of time where we do have cash. And if we look at agriculture, we're just looking at business as usual. And if we look at the last couple of years, and particularly, I think the US has been the same, here in Australia, we've had some extreme price variability. We've seen some really rapid changes due to a number of circumstances, being season driven, the Australian dollar valuation, etc. And that's causing our prices to jump all over the place. I don't see this year is actually going to be any different. We might just have a few less choices. And so that the first point that I make with that is, let's just not go rushing into anything. Let's just sit back with the opportunities that are going to be coming. Just keep your powder dry. I think and I'm really happy to see a lot of people not rushing out. We've just come through, actually, in the last month or so, the cattle market has gone to levels never seen before over here. So we've seen some amazing prices. So a lot of our guys have capitalised on that. So they haven't been a spectator on the sidelines talking about how great the prices are that they're finally high. They've been going in, okay, how do we use this? And the benefit with that is that they've actually got less cattle now, or sheep, that are looking to sell for a period of time. Southern Australia's under a bit more pressure in terms of just the timing of the seasons. And I think that's where all you can do is think through these scenarios. So we don't know what's going to happen. We can't predict that. Just set yourself up with a bit more of a buffer. And the final thing that one of the conversations we've been having is around prices. It's really easy to think how in these recent times when we've seen some pretty good prices for commodities right across the board, to think that it drops off a bit and go, oh, that's not good enough. And I'll come back to a saying I came across a number of years ago in a share trading book that talked about you can't go broke making a profit. And so I'll probably just leave you guys with that to think about, focus on the problem that you can actually deal with. So come back to Stephen Covey, work on what those things in your circle of influence, make sure you focus on that. And if you can find a way to navigate through this year and be profitable at the end of that, then, hey, you've done a great job.
Awesome. Thank you, David. 5 a.m. there, right? On a Sunday morning.
That's right. Yeah, thanks, mate. You're really, really looking after me here.
I appreciate you getting up early. Andrea, I wanted to throw it to you and see if there's some things coming through that you've captured that we can deal with.
Actually, we don't have any questions yet in the chat box. But so, yeah, if anyone has questions for Dallas or some of the people that he's calling on, feel free to type it in the chat box and we will try to answer it.
I saw Wally Olson was on. Wally, if you'd unmute yourself, you shared some interesting things with the EO group call the other day, and maybe ask you to just briefly reiterate some of the things related to what are the principles that we need to use for our decision making about should we sell, should we not? Would you remind us of some of those?
Well, one thing you need to be aware of, and this is going back to learning that I learned from Bud, is we need to deal with today. And that's all we can deal with. We can, you can learn from yesterday and you can prepare for tomorrow or worry about tomorrow, but you just need to deal with today, and you need to look at the relationships of the market and what they're giving. I don't know if any of you read Doug Ferguson's blog on beef producer, but he had a really good pointed out that right now you can trade a open cow for a pretty good bred cow, even money, which very seldom happens. So there's great opportunities out there, and like I was talking about filling the gaps. We went up. Since we've filled the gaps, and now we're on our way back down and stuff. So, you just need to learn and prepare, for that. And like on watching, your timing, Starbucks is opening up in China, and they're very conservative as far as taking risks. And it was 9 weeks, so we're 3 weeks in it. So, here in about 6 weeks, we could be, getting out of it. One thing, though, I think we need to be very, very aware of is the odds on the markets and the packing plants of closing. I think they closed one in Alberta because of the virus, and they're going to close down, and you're going to lose your, the opportunity to do stuff. So to me, you need to be, especially if you have some cull cows, you need to be getting stuff done. Or if you own some sheep, You know, if you got some lambs for sale, you need to be getting them sold, in my opinion. You know, so. And is there any questions?
I'm going to throw it back to Andrea, see if she's.
We don't have a question for Wally yet, but we do have a question from Jen about the implications wheel. And it's how many people should be taking part in doing the wheel? Is there too big or too small of a group to accomplish that?
Yeah, I'll invite Dave to chime in on this as well. But I think, you know, when in doubt, be inclusive rather than exclusive. So if you've got a team in your business that is looking through this, I'd encourage you to include those folks that are going to be impacted by it. Dave, would you have any comments?
I think the ideal number is somewhere between 4 and 6. So if I had 8 or 10 people, I'd have them all do it, but I'd have them do it in 2 separate rooms. I'd split them up and have them do 2 wheels on the same topic. It'd be interesting to compare.
Yeah.
And I'd just like to chime in on that, since we are all trying to practice social distancing. You could do this implication wheel via Zoom. There is a free Zoom option for individuals. It's like a 45-minute meeting that you can just keep re-establishing. And so that could work if you need to do this with people that can't all be in the same room during this time.
So I think that we've been going about as long as I wanted to go on this. Hopefully we've shared with you some ideas to think through about increasing communication in your business, thinking through this in a logical way, pulling yourself up the ladder and putting yourself in a position of control, responsibility from an ownership perspective. And so hopefully there's some tools there. A couple other pieces that I would encourage you with this is, Ben, for us, it was really valuable to include the employees and have those conversations, because they're also worried. And if you've got employees working with you in your business and this has exposed you to some volatility and some stress in your business, they're wondering what you're thinking, and they're wondering how it's going to impact them. So you know, bringing them in just for the sake of sharing and putting things on the table is definitely a good move. But I appreciate everybody coming in. You know, our job at RMC here is to empower you guys with the tools you need to make good decisions for your business, not to tell you what to do, but to help you think through what are the options in front of you so that you can make better decisions. So with that, again, thanks for your time on a Saturday, and we might do this again as things continue to unfold. And Andrea, I see you.
We just had we just had a question come in for Wally. If he could share his comments on making trades to increase time. Oh, something that you talked about the other day on the EL call, perhaps? It's from Aaron.
Yes, I'll do that. You know, when I'm talking about building time, is basically you know, this is a great opportunity to build time in a cow herd. The cold cows are overvalued. So this would be you know, to maybe cut a little deeper into your herd and keep an undervalued heifer calf, or just pick up the cash, you know, since we, you know, don't know for sure what is going to happen. And then always, you know, always be, you know, getting your cattle light, you know, getting back to lighter cattle, because you have, you know, less capital tied up in them, and also you have, you know, a lot less, you know, dollars going down. Because like I shared on the other call, you know, if you had you know, the market basically dropped $35 for everything, and if you had a 300-pound calf, that was $105. If you had an 800-pound one, it's $280. That's a lot of money. You always need to be trading back. I hope that answers the question.
All right, guys. Well, we're here at RMC. If there's something we can do to help you out, I'm going to throw back up my PowerPoint with our contact information on there, and we'll leave the call open for a few minutes if anybody has some open discussion they want to do. But thanks for joining on today. I hope this was useful for you, and just we're thinking about you all out there, and take care of yourself. So thanks for being with us.
Andrea, is this audible? Okay.
Yes, go ahead, Dave.
This is Dave, and I've used this wheel a bunch of times, and in the sake of space, Dallas showed two implications coming off of some of the things. Typically in doing this, you want to force yourself to get at least 5 or 6 implications coming off each thing and make sure at least 1 or 2 are positive and 1 or 2 are negative. And when Dallas talked about specificity, again, in the name of space, I know he made these things kind of general. But if you want to get the most out of a process like this, rather than saying something about like supply chain disruption, you'd probably want to be more specific about what that disruption looked like. For example, you might say 35% of packing plant workers test positive for COVID-19 in July. And then the types of implications that might come off of something like that would be packing plant throughput slows by 1/3. Packing plant starts hiring undocumented workers. Packing plant closes for 2 months. Uninfected plant workers are encouraged to work overtime. Local hospital flooded with COVID-19 patients. Feeder prices dropped 20% due to lower packing plant throughput, or due to fear that packing plant throughput will drop and demand will decrease. That's the kind of specificity, and there's certainly no room on a PowerPoint to be able to show that kind of thing. But that's the kind of specificity that will really lead to a good result on this sort of thing. And then, of course, from each of those implications, you'd spin out 5 or 6 more. But the limitations of something like a program like PowerPoint, it's hard to be able to show the kind of specificity that really makes this process useful. So just thought I'd chime in with that.
And just as everyone's getting off the call, if anyone has any questions about this or other things in relation to COVID-19 and what we're doing, feel free to send us an email at rmc@ranchmanagement.com, or you can call our office or just visit the website ranchmanagement.com. We want to be able to provide resources for what you guys need.
All right. Well, I'm not hearing anybody else jumping in. So thanks, guys. Thanks, Andrea, Dave McLean, Wally, everybody else for being on. Don't be afraid to reach out, guys. We'll see you.